All right, gentlemen, 2-minute opening statements. We will start with the incumbent, Scott Johnson. Scott, if you'd like to make your 2-minute opening statement.
Thank you all again for being here. I'll fully admit, as Tony said, you're going to find out a little bit about candidates, that I am not a morning person. So you have to bear with me. We were at council until midnight last night, 7-hour meeting, which was great and love it. You can't complain about it when you run for it and want it. So I'm not complaining about it. Guys, I am excited to be here and excited to be running for council again. When we ran 3 years ago, we talked about some real basic principles, and that was, number one, don't screw it up. You know, Mike Simpson, George Purifoy, Masso, Bob Warren, a lot of folks that come before us that made great decisions that put Frisco on a path to success. And so my first intention was, whatever you do, don't mess up what those guys have done, guys and gals as well. And secondly, it was give your best effort and make sure that you don't get over your skis, that you don't let government try to do too much and do more of what it's supposed to be doing than really what government is charged to do. And I'm a firm believer that, you know, the less we take of your money, the less we are in your life, the better off that you are and the better off we are as a community. My whole campaign has really centered around, and your last question asked it, you know, what's your vision to BART? Excuse me. And for me, it is real simple in that I think it's paramount that we continue to focus on building a community rather than just building a city. You know, building a city is easy. We get a bunch of people in here, we get them to come in as fast as we can, we build homes, we bring in businesses, and that's easy to do. But to maintain a community where people are involved and people know each other and people are coming to parades and they're active in organizations and they're volunteering in their community, that to me is the key, and I think together we can do it.
Mr. Classe, 2-minute opening.
I do respond to anything. My name is John Classe. I'm challenging Scott Johnson for place 6 on the Frisco City Council. My wife and I have lived here now for almost 11 years, where we'll be 11-year residents this fall, and we frankly stumbled onto Frisco. It was kind of luck, as you'd have it. I grew up in the Dallas area. I was a child in Richardson, and a brief stint, junior high and high school age, just took me to St. Louis, where I met my wife, Melanie. We've been married for almost 10 years, and settled here in Frisco the same month the mall opened back in August of 2000. So I have been here for quite some time, and I've witnessed the dramatic growth that Frisco has achieved, and fell in love with it, frankly. We stumbled upon Frisco back in 2000, but when we started a family and we needed more space, we needed a second home. We needed to move. And criteria we had were staying within the Frisco ISD, but you could do that and not live in the city of Frisco. We chose to stay in the city of Frisco because of the things that we had witnessed, the path that the city was on, and a desire to continue that. I was hooked from the beginning. I've always been wired to be interested in local government. So early on in my years in Frisco, in 2002, came out and met local leadership thanks to some current leaders at the time, and got involved with a couple of PACs on some issues that were on the ballot back in 2002. It led to a stint of working on State Highway 121. I think we actually came and spoke to the chamber at the time trying to rally support for that. We didn't get the outcome we wanted, but we did get a better outcome than the state wanted, and that is to keep the NTTA involved with it, not sell it to a foreign company, no for-profit element, therefore no revenue leaving our borders. Then became a Parks and Rec Board member in 2006. Served on the Parks and Recreation Board for 4 years, was the chairman in 2010. When that term ended, the council, including the one that Mr. Johnson is currently on, unanimously appointed me to the Arts Collin County Board back in the fall. Love the city. Want to see the city that is just under 50% developed continue to develop in the same smart way that it has over the last 10 years as we develop the remaining 50%. Thank you.
Mr. Classe, we'll start with you, sir, with the first question. This will be a 1-minute question, gentlemen, and it's a long question. Hypothetically, all of the remaining major roads that Frisco was going to need in the next 10 to 15 years, if they could be built today, would you build them? The bad news under this scenario was that it was going to necessitate raising property taxes by 4 cents per $100 for the next 5 years. The good news is that it would save the city of Frisco 50% of the total cost because of lower construction cost and future inflation. How would you vote on this issue?
I would give you a blanket yes answer on that question. I think that the city, and I'm definitely a proponent of the city getting out ahead of growth. The city of Frisco is where it is today because of how competitive it was with the city of Plano in negotiating for Stonebriar Center, the mall. We're going to face that same challenge on our northern border with US 380. The city is already in partnership with private enterprise in order to build the next retail center up on the northern border of Frisco, and Prosper is learning from past successes. So in order to make sure that that ends up being on the same side of the border in Frisco, we're going to need to offer those developers infrastructure. We have very little infrastructure up there in terms of water lines, sewer lines, roads. So to get out ahead of that growth, I think would be a smart thing to do. To do so in a way that would significantly raise the tax rate, as you suggest, I think would probably be imprudent. The good news is the citizens of Frisco have voted in the past to support infrastructure improvements such as this. Through bond elections, they did it in 2002 when I was a resident, and they did it in 2006, and they would have ultimate say.
Thank you, Mr. Classe. 1 minute.
Well, I guess the short answer is no, and it's not necessarily because we don't want to raise taxes. It's because the city and our city's plan for roads is a working document. I mean, we've got people moving in and moving out, and tracts of land being sold all the time. And so while we have a pretty good idea of where we believe the growth is coming in, to try to lay down all the tracts of road now to prepare for that is unrealistic. We plan out ahead. I think, we follow the lead of our city manager and our city road staff. We get together twice a year and plan out and actually put up on a whiteboard the roads and the necessities, and we move number 16 to number 4, and we move number 1 down to number 5. And I think we do a very good job of that, led by our city staff. But to the thought of building it all now because we know it's going to be needed in the future, I don't think is realistic.
Mr. Johnson, this question will be for you, sir. It's for both candidates, but you'll start, Mr. Johnson. It'll be a 30-second response. While Frisco has enjoyed much of the spotlight over the past years, it seems that other cities here of late, Allen and Grapevine notably, are taking some of the spotlight away with their recent increase in retail development, such as Cabela's and other retail development along US 75. What does Frisco need to do to not lose any of their current luster or regain some of the luster that they may have lost?
Well, first, I challenge the premise. I mean, as Bart said last night, we sat in executive session for an hour and a half and listened to the most dynamic projects that this city has ever seen in terms of retail development, businesses coming into town. So while the spotlight may be on other cities because they're new and shiny, I mean, look at where we are right now. Look at this theater. Look at the hospital that's going in right outside, the biggest construction project in Frisco right now. We've certainly got to redouble our efforts. We've certainly got to make sure we're committed to our economic development goals and our CDC goals.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Classe, 30 seconds.
30 seconds is tough. I've always had that concern, especially as 121 became told. But I'm thankful that the city of Frisco continues to shine. We, as Mr. Johnson said, we continue to be a magnet for businesses to come here. I think we have plenty of opportunities for continued success. We have plenty of land to offer and economic development incentives to offer to other businesses. However, we do have to stay on our toes. We can't let the recession that is now 2 years old stop us from doing anything further, because other cities will pick up where we leave off.
We'll start with you, Mr. Classe. This will be a 1-minute question. Before we began this, I talked to Tony. Tony said this is called the Boot Camp Forum. So for you candidates out there, this is a new form of foruming called Boot Camp Forum. That's why the 30-second questions. All of you have done wonderful with the 30-second questions. So this one is a 1-minute question, however, and it does tail off of the last question. What do you think should be the role of the city and its representatives when it comes to dictating who or what operates and develops in the community? 1 minute, Mr. Classe.
I think that the free market should determine that for the most part. I think with a situation like you have with Exide, you clearly have a business that might be thwarting other businesses from locating here. So in rare circumstances such as that, you may want to try to influence that. But generally, development is going to come here, and there's only so much the city can do to mold it. We have high development standards so that we have sustainability, so that we don't have the taxpayer overburdened with these things that prematurely start to decay. That's where I believe the city is best involved. What businesses are going to come here, they're going to do first and foremost of their own volition, and the Economic Development Corporation, the City of Frisco, can help attract them here versus going to any of our neighboring cities.
Mr. Johnson.
Well, Judge, I'm not quite sure I understand the spirit of the question, but I'll say that, you know, I agree with Mr. Classe in that free market determines who comes and who leaves. Now, we've got a unique opportunity as a 4A, 4B city to offer some incentives to businesses to come here and to relocate here. And I think we do a really outstanding job of that. I get the opportunity, I serve on the Texas Economic Development Corporation as Governor Perry's appointee, so I get the chance to travel the state and travel the country and talk to other cities and talk to CEOs about moving to the state, and I get the chance to talk about Frisco all the time. And, you know, I think that outreach is going on. I'll be spending the day with our economic development staff in McKinney talking to businesses over there, and I'm certain we'll be talking to them about coming here. So it's an ongoing effort. Government needs to be involved. We need to create the right culture in the right community so that businesses want to be here.
Mr. Johnson, we'll start with you, sir. This is the last question for both candidates. This will be a 1-minute response. Is the Frisco land use plan appropriate for in the long term to sustain us through build out when there is not much industrial land and any business that is not retail or office may be perceived as being a danger to the residents?
Well, again, I'm trying to understand the question. The land use plan is something we look at on a continual basis. When I'm assuming you're talking about kind of the master plan build out of the city. And we're looking at that at every work session. We sit down and spend quite a bit of time. We have city appoints review committees to go through that to make sure that it's updated. Certainly could use a refreshing, no question. You know, the one thing that we don't have that some other cities have is more of a campus for corporations. If you really want to get serious about going after Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, we might have to develop a little bit more of an infrastructure. Certainly from an industrial aspect is what I think you mentioned. I don't think that that's something that we're lacking necessarily as a city. I don't think it's really in our future for that to be the case. I think the industries that we're going to be going after aren't traditionally considered industrial.
Mr. Classe, 1 minute.
If Frisco has a lack of industrial corporations or corporate partners, I think it's probably a function of geography more than anything else. And we're not near the airport. We do have a rail line, and the master plan currently for what industrial zoning we have in the city is near that rail line, and that would be most appropriate. I think that the master plan, though, is constantly looked at and should be constantly looked at because certain developments come in that fit the master plan. There are certain developments that try to come in that don't necessarily fit the master plan, and we need to adjust the master plan if they're a good fit for the city of Frisco, adjust the master plan around them so that it becomes appropriate or more appropriate as we move forward. But I think the master plan addresses not only retail, residential, corporate office space as the city currently has it, but it also has space for industrial uses as well. I agree, though, that the success of the Plano community with the legacy area with corporate partners is something that Frisco will continue to try to grow within our own borders.
We will now go to closing arguments. Mr. Classe, we will start with you, sir. You have a 2-minute closing statement.
Okay. Well, I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for having us here today. I appreciate it. It is refreshing, and I'm not a morning person either, but for some reason I popped right up at 5 o'clock this morning. My wife's usually first one up, and she was still snoozing, so that's good. I got out there. Now, I have 2 little girls. I have a 6- and a 3-year-old. I don't think I mentioned that when we first got started. My oldest is a kindergartner at Isabel Elementary, and so we're getting our feet wet in all aspects of the city now. I own a business here. I'm here during the day, as well as sleep here at night. I worship here. We go to church within the city of Frisco. And as I said at the open, we just fell in love with the city. My aspirations are to continue to see Frisco to develop the way that it has smartly over the last decade, to do so as the economy allows us to do so in a smart way without negatively impacting the taxpayers of Frisco. I have no aspirations beyond this point. I will stay here. I will serve out the entire term. And for me, it's all about Frisco. Thank you very much.
Mr. Johnson, closing statement, sir.
Well, I'm glad to know that. I think it's all about Frisco for all the candidates that are running, hopefully to spend the amount of time that we spend serving or running, I think it is. Just by way of quick background, I'm married. My wife is not here. She's trying to get our kids up and ready. We've got 3 kids under the age of 5. And during the course of this, I've also learned that I'm not a morning person, but I also have allergies. So my apologies as I've hacked and coughed my way through through this whole forum. We are really excited about the campaign. We've gotten a lot of support from the community, a lot of support from the business community. The Frisco Police Officers Association has endorsed me. The Frisco Firefighters Association has endorsed me. The Collin County Realtors have endorsed me as well. And we've gotten a tremendous amount of support from the community, and I think the reason why is because I've tried to, over the course of the 3 years, while we certainly have not agreed, I'm certain with many people on every issue, we've tried to tell it like it is and vote our conscience and try to do the best thing for the long-term vision of the city. We don't agree all the time as a council, certainly, but I think, I think that's healthy. I think if we had a council that was 6-0 on every vote, I think that's a real quality thing for the city. We have great discussions. We work well as a team. Certainly have had our challenges, but together we're moving this city forward. And we've got the greatest opportunities that we have. I said it a forum ago where I said Frisco's best days are ahead of it. And I absolutely mean that. So when I talk about running and being a part of this city, it is because I want to be a part of all the great things that we have going on. Yeah, there are challenges we've got to have. We've got to we got to talk about the arts, and we got to figure out what we're going to do with taxes and how we're going to pay for the roads and how we're going to deal with an economy that continues to be diminished. But what's exciting is all the things that we've got ahead of us, and they are some really phenomenal things. And I'd ask for your vote, and I'd appreciate it very much.
Thank you. If you'll please give the candidates a large hand of applause. Thank you both. Appreciate your time. Thank you.